Hello, and welcome to our Innovation Women Speak webinar series. My name is Bobby Carlton. I'm the founder of Innovation Women. Innovation Women is a visibility bureau for entrepreneurial, technical, and professional women. Our mission is to eliminate the all male, all pale, and often all stale panels you see so often at industry conferences and events. We connect women with speaking opportunities, and we connect event managers with awesome speakers who just happen to be women. Innovation Women is so much more than a traditional speakers bureau. Event managers can search our database for free, and speakers pay just $100 a year to become a member. They get a profile on the platform and access to lists of speaking opportunities, as well as a number of other cool benefits. Here are just a few of the great features on Innovation Women. It's a way for speakers, consultants, workshop leaders, and subject matter experts to get the visibility that drives careers and business success. Our Kickstart cohort program can help you get the most out of your Innovation Women membership. Our team provides you with guidance to help you perfect your profile and understand how to work with our extensive list of speaking opportunities. The cohort structure offers you a built-in network for accountability and motivation. Every speaker needs a group of speaker friends. You can learn more and register in the Attachments and Links tab. And for our webinar attendees, we have a special offer of 20% off your first year. Use the code IWWebinar, that's all capital letters, all one word, for 20% off. Check it out at innovationwomen.com. And before we get started with today's presentation, I encourage you to register for our upcoming webinars. On July 27th, Dr. Teresa Ashby will present tips and tricks to building a successful e-learning course. You'll learn how to leverage an e-learning product to scale your business, the 3 tips to creating a saleable and scalable e-course, the 3 traps that stop people from creating their e-course. You can register for this webinar in the Attachments tab. And speaking of that Attachments tab, this is an annotated version of your screen. Below the video viewing window, there are tabs. The default tab is Ask a Question. You can type in a question or a comment at any point during the program. The Attachments tab is where you'll see documents and links from today's speakers and the link to sign up for future webinars. You can download the attachments at any time during the webinar and from the recording. The tab called Rate This helps us determine what you like. We read all your feedback. You can enlarge your screen to view it in full screen mode. If at any time you need audio help or the screen freezes, try refreshing the page and feel free to click on the help button at the bottom of the screen. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you'd like to view it again, you will be able to. We will send you that link after the webinar. And now on to today's presentation. With us today is Emily Golding of MDG and Rusty Williams from AnswerStage. Emily is department head at MDG, a leading event marketing company, and Rusty is co-founder of AnswerStage, a Boston-based provider of automated video collection and production services. And welcome to you both. I'm going to start right off by saying that AnswerStage is an important strategic partner for Innovation Women. You guys were the key to helping us pivot during those early days of the pandemic. And now, obviously, creating all these great videos for our speakers and for event promotion. So thank you,
Well,
Rusty.
thank you very much for those kind words, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and Emily.
Absolutely. And thank you, Emily, for joining us today. Maybe, Emily, you can start us off and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And thanks for having me here. So I work for MDG, like you said. So for those of you who don't know what MDG is, it's the leading marketing agency that is hired by event organizers, conferences, and generally event managers to lead the marketing for events. So what that means in simple terms is that me and my team are responsible for getting attendees to attend events.
Fantastic. And Rusty, what's your role?
So I'm co-founder of AnswerStage, and it's our third different technology company. So I'm a technology company startup. I don't know, recovering, whatever you want to call it. I focus on, helping to build a product and helping to learn from our customers and form relationships with groups like MDG and Emily to help them and others use video as a means of promotion. So that will certainly be my angle on the commentary here: is how does video fit into this overall landscape of promoting events?
And obviously, me today, Bobby from Innovation Women, I'm kind of representing speakers in today's conversation. So obviously, we work with quite literally hundreds. Well, we're up to thousands now of speakers on the Innovation Women platform. So tell me a little bit about how the two of you got started working together. Emily?
Rusty, why don't I let you take that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to. To be honest, we were trying to figure out exactly how this capability of video collection and production, which is what we do, we automate that whole process, fits into the broader landscape of marketing. And we worked with a conference called LCI early on, and it just happened that MDG was helping them market. So it was an introduction through that one organization. And because of the success of that, we have continued with a variety of other conferences. And so we have an ongoing relationship because MDG does so many different conferences. We have an ongoing relationship where we help them with a growing number of conferences. So it was that early example that showed this works that grew into this broader relationship.
Gotcha. And Emily, part of what you do is obviously help promote events.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. Perfect match.
Yep. Perfect match. Okay. So I'm diving right in and I want to know, why should speakers get involved in promoting the events that they're speaking at? I mean, they're doing a lot. They're already showing up and basically they are the show. Why should they help promote too?
That's a really good question. I'll take that one. And that's something that we have to answer frequently, right? Because we're hired to get attendees to events. So we like to look at all the different avenues to attract attendees. So event organizers, from the perspective of the speaker, their job is really to bring in audiences, right? They're the ones who are promoting this event and getting attendees there. So then speakers kind of sometimes wonder, well, why should I promote, I'm doing my work to speak. So why should I promote the event too? Well, the reason is because that event organizer doesn't necessarily have access to your network. And as a speaker, you have some kind of position, some kind of agenda that's important to you. Maybe you need to tell your story. Maybe you need to speak about something that you're passionate about. You want to kind of share solutions. So you're driven by something and you want to expand and build those relationships that you already have. So by inviting your community, whether that's your colleagues, clients, anyone that really is part of your professional network, you're strengthening those relationships. You're strengthening that position and that viewpoint that you are a thought leader within your circles. And so simply inviting your network is a way to do that in a very kind of easy way, but official and, valuable channel to give them content and information that's important to their business and their professional operations too.
Gotcha. Now, for both of you, I'd love to walk through a little bit of the process or maybe even the thought process around promoting a specific event. Like, how are you taking it from concept to finish line?
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. I can add a couple of thoughts and then Rusty, you want to jump in too. I think one of the things that we've learned from the pandemic, and this is something that MDG has kind of always leaned on in terms of our strategy, is that we need to be promoting the value of an event, not just promoting an event, right? So register now isn't the message. It's why should you register? What's important about this event? How will it help you? What are the benefits? And so that's what tapping into speakers helps us to do, because speakers, are the ones who really bring the content. They're the ones who bring the expertise. They know their niche, they know their area. So we want to leverage those voices from a marketing standpoint to convey the value of attending. And that's really how you move from this kind of pre-planning an event to actually marketing an event and really telling that story.
Gotcha. Rusty?
Yeah, and I'd add that that's exactly right. That the people who are attending the event, I think there's some studies about this, but most of them will cite education, and they will cite personal connections and relationships that they form at those conferences. And so being able to feature what speakers are bringing to the table as hot topics, current trends, their area of expertise, and have that be something that says, that is really going to benefit me in terms of my career development, et cetera, is the perfect way for a conference or any event to promote itself. And I'd echo what Emily is saying, that this really becomes about kind of a network of networks. The show has a network of connections, and then the speakers and attendees have a network of connections. And the more you can fuse those together and turn them into a promotional, super fuel, the better off they'll be. We can get into this in a second, but part of the challenge is, going from that thought to how do we then do that in an efficient, non-kind of time-consuming and complex way. So I think speakers are a great source of that content, and it's really, how do you start to highlight, how do you get that out, and how do you make that methodical?
Okay. And just for our studio audience today, I just popped up a poll. I'd love to know, what percentage of our listeners today are speakers, who is here because they're running events and they want to tap Emily for some great insights. And if you're here because you just love webinars, definitely choose the other category. Okay, so if you're an event marketer or you're an event organizer or a speaker, we want to know. So if you let us know in the poll, that would be immensely helpful. Rusty, Emily, I would love to hear a little bit about what you have learned over time doing these kind of joint projects, and maybe some insight on what is the most effective ways of getting the marketing out there for events.
Emily, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Well, we have lots of programs where we essentially kind of think about them as partner and promotion programs. So the idea, again, is really kind of tapping into the networks that speakers have to help build their credibility and market the show, market the event. So we understand, and event organizers understand, that speakers are very busy. Speakers are normal people. They have full-time jobs. They have families. They have, all these other things that kind of demand their attention. So it's really important to event organizers, every single event organizer who I've ever worked with, that they respect that and that they respect the relationships that they have with their speakers. They're already very appreciative of the fact that they're participating in the event, that they're sharing content, that they're adding value. So when it comes to marketing the event and, taking that extra time, what we've always kind of thought about is making sure that it's very simple and that we're not adding a lot to those individuals' plates, because they're doing this, usually on their own time outside of their working hours, in addition to kind of all of their additional responsibilities. So ease of use is very important. That means we're going to provide easy to use templates, already created graphics, things where you could simply customize based on how much an individual wants to add in their own touch, or just, throw something up on social. And I think that's, Rusty, where we've really enjoyed working with you, because AnswerStage is so easy to use and it's so customized and targeted. So we aren't telling a speaker what to say. We're asking a speaker to really share their key takeaways about their session, or why someone should attend, or what they're passionate about, or what a trade show and a conference that they're speaking at means to them. So we're making it very easy, but all they have to do is answer questions. And, that's kind of the extent of the legwork. So I think that's really the biggest takeaway and the most important driver when doing event marketing, is making sure that we're making it as easy as we can for speakers to participate.
Mm-hmm. I can think back to some of our earliest conversations, and also what we've learned from other conferences is A, making it easy to create the content, and then B, making it as easy as possible to share it. And some ways to do that is providing a link and saying you can share from this link. The other way is to post it through the conference's main account and then tag the speakers. So then when they go on to LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, it makes it easy for them to reshare. And so those are techniques that we've learned over time. That as Emily's saying, it's really important to think, well, how do we make it so it's a minimal amount of time required for the speaker to participate in this promotion? The truth is, most are happy to do it. They just don't want to take an hour Zoom call to plan what it is that they might do, and then take another half hour to create it, and then have to do all that themselves. So that really, it's all about smoothing out that process. And making it so that they're easily prompted, they're easy to respond, and then that becomes something that they can share pretty easily as well.
Yeah, speaking for me, I always have the brain freeze. Why am I excited about this event? I'm excited. That just makes me crazy. Like when I'm like, I'm excited to go to this event and meet all you awesome people. But that's me thinking about myself, not thinking about, as you said earlier, Emily, thinking about why people should sign up and buy a ticket.
No, I think you're tapping into a really good point. And that's another thing that's kind of become, it's always been important, but it's become even more important because of the pandemic, right? So there has been a philosophy in the past with certain events where there was this idea of if we build it, they will come, right? Like if we have the event, people will show up. That's not the case anymore. We're competing in this digital economy, and people are working from home. They're seeing more digital advertisements and emails and messages on their screen than ever before. So it's imperative for event organizers to convey, again, that value of attending, and not just the value of attending, but why attend now? Why attend this year? Why buy a plane ticket when, if anyone's traveled anytime recently or is planning to, has seen the cost of flights or gas, So exactly, we really, really need to tap into why it's important. And that's the reason why the video, the AnswerStage video approach is really important, because we ask questions like, what are the top 3 takeaways that attendees will get from your session? Or we ask, why is it important to attend in person? And maybe not in person, maybe it's a virtual conference, and that's fine too. But, why is it important to get together and be in this place virtually or in person at one time? And by asking these different types of questions, we're allowing speakers the opportunity to talk about what's important to them and what resonates to them. And it gets beyond that, I'm excited, register now, message that just, it's not going to, hit in the same way. But, it allows their own personality and their own kind of inspirational message to come through.
Those are great questions. And actually, I find that a lot of those questions are being asked in the calls for speakers, give me the 3 takeaways. So as a speaker, I probably already have that information easily available to me because I had to create it. I had to know it just to apply to speak.
Exactly. Yep. That's a good point. That's the benefit, is that you already have all this information as the speaker. It's part of your message. And so that's really what we like to tap into, because that's what leaves attendees inspired. I can think back to so many events that I've been to, and the speakers who just really have that impact on you. Yeah. It's just those moments that can kind of come through.
All right. And I'm going to shut down our poll now, but it looks like 57% of our attendees today are speakers. We also have 26% who are running events, and then, good size other group. You just like those webinars. I'm sure it's something else. Feel free to put your other into the ask a question, so we know who else is here and how we can serve you today. And speaking of serving you, feel free to ask any questions or drop any comments into the ask a question tab, and they will come to us. I want to actually, since we've got 2 different groups in our audience, maybe we can talk a little bit to the different motivations of speakers, event managers. And Emily, you were talking earlier about partner promotion marketing. You've got other audiences and other partners that you're talking to as well, right?
We do, yeah. So when we're thinking about event marketing, what's really important for us is to think about kind of the segments and the different groups who want to participate. And that can be high level. You could break it out by, exhibitors, speakers, attendees. Sometimes it can be as simple as that. Other times there are there's maybe 3 or 4 groups of personas that kind of fall into that attendee category. But what we really want to do when we're thinking about segmenting and kind of tapping into the motivations for why someone would participate in an event, that's something where flexibility and customization is important. So when you have an event that has a very robust trade show floor, there's a reason that attendees are going to that trade show floor. Maybe they're buyers and they need to find new products. Maybe they're there to kind of find new services. So the questions that we're going to be asking exhibitors to answer in their promotional efforts are about their products, about innovations in the industry. We have a pet retail event that we work with, and the way that independent pet retailers set themselves apart from the big box stores of the world is through customer service and unique products that they find at a trade show. So that's what we want to tap into when we're talking to those groups. When we're talking with an event that's more focused on content or conference based, that's really where the speakers and their insights come out. And maybe that's details about a book that they've just written that they're promoting. And speaking to motivations, a speaker wants, if they've written a book, they want to speak about it. They want to kind of share the insights. They want to grow their own kind of network and professional standing. So that's really where the different motivations of the participants of an event come into play with the pre-marketing.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned very briefly earlier is pandemic. Like literally the last couple of years have been very interesting and different. I mean, Rusty, AnswerStage really was kind of coming out just as the pandemic started. I know we started using it during the pandemic. What has the pandemic done for us or to us in terms of the events marketing world?
Well, as I said, we kind of hit our stride in the middle of the pandemic in a way. We kind of thought, well, this is perfect timing. Here's a way that you can collect from anywhere, from people who are in their dens and in their offices, videos that you can then share, and that will be kind of our breakout point. But the honest truth is, it's actually been more interesting as people have gotten back into the in-person mode. They are, especially for conference promoters, are eager to show those personalities and those people that you will be in touch with and you will be in proximity of as you get back into in-person conferences. So there's still a lot that happens virtually, but it is interesting to see the increased demand that is happening even after the pandemic. And so I think, to a shorter answer to your question is I think people have gotten more accustomed to this kind of interaction and being on camera, providing video content, providing kind of a remote type of way of interacting. But it also has made them, inclined to record something prior to an event, so that helps with their networking and helps with their thought leadership, et cetera. So it is I think in a way made people more video oriented or more kind of pre-show and personality oriented. So that's my quick take.
Emily?
Well, and I think the authenticity is a really big component too, because we've all been living in this world where we're seeing each other's faces on a screen, but we're also getting a little bit of a sneak peek into the real lives that we live. I mean, there's been times when I've been on meetings and all of a sudden my son pops in the background or whatever because I'm at home. And so being able to have these kind of natural conversational videos that feel authentic and personalized is something that has become, I don't want to say more acceptable, but more valued, I think, because of the pandemic, right? We used to kind of focus more on extremely polished and prepared and, practiced content, and everything had to be overproduced. I don't think that it has to be that way anymore. And I really love the AnswerStage videos because they are very, very easy for us to produce on the on the agency side. But they look really high quality, but you're still getting that authentic message. It's just a person sharing their message. You know, it's not overly scripted. It's not overly, it's authentic. I think authentic is one of the things that's really been prominent for me from a messaging standpoint due to the pandemic.
Yeah. There's just a really interesting point that I think that is something people have got more comfortable with is that the lighting and the professionalism of that video capture, there's still a place for that, but people are more comfortable with the caliber of video that we have right now and getting to know people from that. And it's interesting to see on the network news that a lot of their interviews now are done by WebEx or something else. So it really has become sort of like what we expect, and that's a good thing because we can then collect the video much easier because we're using these same tools that we're using to interact, in these webinars and Zoom calls.
Yeah, and I think as speakers, we're all very comfortable now doing this because we are doing it literally every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that comfort comes through and we are more willing to do these types of things. Actually, Rusty, did you bring any samples with you?
Yeah.
You can show us a little bit about what, all these things we're talking about.
Yeah, I'll bring up a couple of screenshots. The example that we were just talking about, Emily just talking about, we've been doing this a bunch. This is a show called AUVSI, which are people who are involved in unmanned vehicle research, and it's a huge show. And so this is the type of thing that we'll send out as a question. How is your session topic impacting the industry now, and why should attendees be eager to learn more? So back to my point that education and current trends are one of the key things. This is just one example of dozens of people who did a kind of preview of their panels, and in doing so, this guy Jim from Vanta's program, or from North Plains USA Test Site, he is able to connect with people who will be going to the show, get them interested in meeting him, and you know more about this than I do, Bobby, but I think part of what we were talking about earlier, like what's the motivation? I think most of the people who are speaking aren't those that are marquee speakers. They are people who are going because they have an area of expertise within the industry, and it's very helpful to them to get that word out, to get to be known as the people who are experts in unmanned vehicles. So we've collected a bunch like this that are shown, and obviously this is a screenshot, but this goes into animation of his name and the question, etc. But the video capture, as we were just talking about, is just him talking to his phone or his computer, and so that the overall promotional value and look and feel is very high quality. The video capture itself is what he can do with his own phone or computer. So it's meant to be pretty simple.
Well, it looks like he got fancy and he's got a branded backdrop.
Well, I think he might actually be at his booth, and that was the other thing. We're talking about speakers, but there are people. This is the same show. There are people who are actually doing previews of what they're showing at their booth, and as Emily said, there are certain shows are kind of more exhibitor oriented, and those exhibitors can also be a great source of promotion. They, obviously it's going to be more like a pitch than it is an education, but that pitch is something a lot of people in the unmanned vehicle industry are interested in learning about. The PFG precision optics might be something that you want to incorporate in your next product. So this is just another example of how people are talking about it. And I don't think she's not in her booth. We do have people who actually do it from their booth, but that's another example of using exhibitors or enabling exhibitors to give examples. And then
I'll jump in here and say
yeah.
that example proves something that I say time and time again, that there is a show or a magazine for every industry.
Right. It sure is. And this, just to prove that point, this is what Emily was referring to. This is called SuperZoo, and it's for pet retailers, I think, throughout North America. Like there are people from Latin America and other places, maybe in worldwide.
Yeah, it's worldwide pet retailers. It's a huge industry.
And so it's, it's kind of interesting. You think of, pet retailers, how big can that be? But this is, many thousands of people, and then, providing them the option to introduce their service, their company, and, within that niche, they're all, they all want to make those connections. So it really is universal. And we had another guy who is head of a pet grooming company talk about, how grooming can become a supplemental source of income for pet retailers. When you think about it, that's a big deal. Like, wow, how can I expand my revenue base as a pet retailer?
We've actually got a comment from the audience. Somebody said here, audiences don't assume beautiful video equals better content anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's a good point. I think, yeah, exactly. I think the authenticity matters, and I think everybody again has become comfortable with the quality of video that we're looking at now, and I think that's a really good point. And almost in a way, it as I said, there's still a place for professionally produced video, but it's almost like you're a little bit more suspicious of something that has just a sizzle reel. You want to supplement that, I think, with the people who are speaking, attending, and exhibiting.
Yeah, I want my speakers to be real.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and I think that, like, we talked a little bit about motivations earlier, but if we kind of tap into this example right here. So Maddie is someone who works for a company called Crystal Media. They do digital marketing specifically for pet retailers who have independent stores. So if you think about that business model, they need to go out and they need to find this audience so that they can have customers who are going to fill the pipeline and hire them for digital advertising. What better way, obviously, than speaking? So I think everyone on this call kind of understands that. But the benefit of them creating a video like this is that not only do they send it out to their own networks to, like I talked about earlier, kind of advance and enhance that position of being a leader in the marketplace, staying top of mind, reminding their current customers why they're credible, why they're, great at what they do. It also gives them the opportunity to have SuperZoo or, whatever event they're speaking at, promote that to their own networks and fill up their session because, while we do want speakers to promote the event to their own networks, anything that they do, we're going to amplify on the show's channels. So that's another benefit, because if a speaker isn't tagging the show or putting something on their LinkedIn or somehow or another giving that connecting that content back to the event, it's a lot harder for a show to promote their session because they might only have a description on the website, and sure, that's there, but when you have something else that's more tangible, more detailed, more specific, more authentic, it's much easier for the event organizers to then just repost that and share that to the larger audiences.
All right, so I'm going to mark that as our first super tip of the session. And speakers, you heard what Emily said. When you promote the show promotes you. In other words, there's amplification happening. So when you are participating in these, it gives the opportunity to the show to promote you as well. That's a big one. We've got some questions from our audience as well. And this one actually I'm going to end the slides for a minute and bring us all back. And one of our questions here is, we have a speaker, corporate comms skill coach. She's been in talk with some colleagues, or I'm assuming she, could be a he, been in talks with some colleagues who are also in the training business. They've been exploring the ideas of pulling together a retreat that'd be targeted to women professionals who are in leadership positions, management positions, looking to network, support each other. This is all developing specific skills, conflict resolution, crisis communication. Now, they have no idea of where to start bringing together this event, how to get funding. Like this is from the beginning. Like I'm going to ask some very, very specific questions to help out because this is a big question. Like number one, are you thinking about marketing when you are pulling together show concepts? Like, do you start with those basic marketing functions? Like, how am I going to promote this thing when you're thinking about the show to get started or the event to get started?
We've worked on quite a few brand launches and event launches, and the first thing that I'll say, and that we always say when we have clients who come to us and say, we're going to start an event, is that's fantastic. We're here to support you. And keep in mind that launching an event is not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of work because you have to start and then you have to build an audience. You have to build a following. You have to build credibility. You have to build a brand. You have to convince people to, exactly as you said, fund you. So, I talk a lot about value. It probably sounds like a broken record at this point, but it always goes back to value. So is there a need for your event? Are there people who are interested in that content, that solution? And if so, start naturally, start organically, pull them together on social media and build that audience before you do anything. Because what you don't want to do is invest in creating a logo and a website and reserving a space and all these things that cost a lot of money and then going to find your audience. You want to find your audience first and then build your brand and build your event. So that might be sort of what
Getting
what you were
started. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big question. It's a big question.
Yeah. And, doing an event, not for the faint of heart. I like their approach in terms of doing this collectively.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. And I think that also helps you with your marketing and your list building because probably everybody is coming to the group with something to contribute. So,
Yeah,
Rusty,
I think
any advice?
I think I just reinforce that as another, I think, key point in this conversation that Emily just made, that without the cohesion of an existing community and an existing network, I think going out and trying to produce an event and just hope people show up because you send them an email or something, that is a recipe for, I think, a lot of frustration and wasted money. And really it comes back to marketing is everything. Like, can you bring together a group that has a shared interest, shared affinity, and cohesion that you can move into a whether it be virtual or in person type of gathering. I think you should know that 100% before you set out on making that event happen or asking for money to fund it. Make sure that you can bring people together in a electronic context, and I think that's the most obvious way. There are other ways as well, meetups or etc. But have that cohesion before you go down that path to create something new.
Okay.
Rusty, did you just say share affinity? Because if you did, that's like my favorite new term in the entire world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
all right. Our next question. Calls for speakers often have specific categories to apply to. What do you recommend when you have a talk that may be great for an audience that doesn't fit squarely into preset categories? How do we stand out without being bounced out?
Bobby, I wonder if you have some thoughts on that one, kind of being like an expert in this space. I have a couple thoughts, but I bet you have.
I do. I definitely do. I'm here representing the speakers, not necessarily the event managers, but I always want to kind of go back to the thing, actually, Emily, that you've been talking about a great deal, which is what value is the attendee going to get from the talk? And if you can clearly articulate a value for the audience that is going to be at that event, you pretty much have a winner. And I think, reverting back to value is what I usually point to. I was working with a large enterprise software company here in the Boston market on their annual big event. I mean, they were looking at something like 650 speakers, and we were helping them source a lot of those speakers. And when we were talking to them about the event, they had no career track. all of their tracks were technology oriented, and we suggested adding a career track. And one of the salary negotiation sessions was probably the most popular session of the day. And they said, from now on, we're going to have a career track. And it wasn't something that they started off having. So, Emily?
Well, okay, I can say this because I am sort of representing the event organizers here, and the majority of my clients have said this to me. Event organizers are not the experts in the industry. They're experts at events. They know how to. I mean, sure, they have a lot of knowledge and familiarity, but they're not as familiar as the speakers are with specific trends, nuances, happenings, developments, innovations within a specific industry. So that's why they're relying on the speakers for that content, and maybe even topic categories. So, of all of the content managers and, individuals at an event, organization who oversee the session planning, they value the input from speakers. They want to hear from speakers. So my, tangible recommendation takeaway for this particular question is that if you have a story that you want to tell, if you have a session that you think is going to be important for that audience, as Bobby said, explain and articulate why, but reach out early, because the earlier that you reach out, the more likely you are to get a spot. And 2, reach out beyond just like the call for speakers form. So find out who the content manager is and shoot them an email, ask to talk about it. If there's an agency involved, call the agency, find out all the different ways that you can try to participate, because the more you can convey to the organizers how important this particular topic is, the more important that you're going to stand out. So we work with the National Restaurant Association show. So that's a huge show. Thousands of sessions, I believe. And we received a call, call for speakers response a month and a half before the event. And it was fantastic content, but there was just no room left, and it didn't fit in a track, but we would have been able to kind of find a way to fit them in on a free show floor talk, something like that. But there was just no room. And it just really hurt, because they were, they had valuable messages to kind of send. And so I think that the key is really starting early if you don't think that your category fits perfectly within a preset track.
Oh, great advice.
I think I quickly add is you've been in the PR world, Bobby, and to me, you've learned over and over again, it's useful to have an edge or angle, personality, and if you can, be somewhat provocative, and so if you for example, you go to a marketing thing and you say the funnel is dead and here's why, something like that can open a door that might not open otherwise, because people want to hear those kind of differing viewpoints and opinions. And that doesn't mean be a jerk. It means sort of come in with something that is gonna be a counterpoint or perhaps a new perspective on the topic.
And I will ask Emily, as a follow-up to your advice, do you have advice also on finding the right person? Is there a title? Is there a strategy in terms of, I'm looking at a big show, there's a website, and I was like, I don't even know how to get to the right person. How do you recommend they do that?
I think LinkedIn, it's just, you kind of have to be a good stalker, so to speak, right? Just go to the
sleuth. We use sleuth.
You're a professional speaker here. I think that one of the things that you can do is go. It depends if it's a private event managed by a private event organizer or if it's an event managed by an association. But oftentimes the individual managing the content will be, on LinkedIn, because that's where they're going to be connecting with a lot of their speakers.
Okay.
Sleuth them on LinkedIn.
Sleuth. I also, as a PR person, use the term nudge.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of LinkedIn, Rusty, before we got on stage, you were showing us a LinkedIn promotion.
Yeah. So, I think, we've been talking about how do you promote a conference? How do you feature speakers, exhibitors, et cetera? And I show those screenshots of the videos, but really the key point is those videos have to make it out into the broader world, to your connections, to the show's connections. That's where the real network effect takes place. And so all I did was bring up an example of a video. Let's see if this shares properly, to show, this is a gentleman who works for a consulting company, and he created this post. Obviously, lots of reactions, lots of comments, other things. And so this is what we're talking about as the end result. So yes, you can make the video. Yes, we can create it. It's not, but it's when it gets out into the world and has that network effect that it really is beneficial. And from our perspective, in most cases, that network is LinkedIn, as Emily just said. It really is the business-oriented service. Facebook, maybe for some certain topics. Twitter is a little bit more ephemeral, and you might as well put it there. But it really is, how can we get a presence on LinkedIn and get people to know about us? And at least from what we've seen, that has been the primary way of reaching a broad audience.
So LinkedIn.
TikTok is going to be next.
I'm sorry, I stepped on you there. Try that again.
Well, I would say TikTok will be next.
Yeah, so TikTok is a really interesting new trend, because everybody thinks of it as places where people are dancing and doing dance contests, but it is coming on super strong as a business and advice-based service, and it is all video oriented, 100% video oriented, and so that is something, I know, Emily, you're in the forefront of that. We're trying to catch up there, because there's different types of videos that work on TikTok. But I would definitely agree with you that you've got LinkedIn, and if you can start building a presence on TikTok. And unfortunately, I don't know that Instagram and Facebook have the same power for business oriented services. So that's a little bit of a maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of where the market is, but it feels like things are moving that direction. And definitely people should think about TikTok as a place to at least learn and see how that's being used.
Emily had a little pensive look when you said that, Russ. All right, Emily, what's effective in terms of these channels?
It's interesting because it depends. So TikTok and LinkedIn 100% agree there. And I do agree with Facebook and Instagram. But what's interesting is that when you look at it from the digital marketing perspective of paid media dollars that event organizers spend to get attendees there, because they do, we see really great conversion rates on Facebook and Instagram. So that means, someone sees an ad while they're scrolling Facebook, we can convert them really well on Facebook, but that doesn't mean that's where they've done a majority of their kind of funnel engagement. So that, from awareness down to consideration, it's just that for whatever reason, when they're on Facebook, we're able to get them to convert more. So it's really interesting. But from a content standpoint, I've seen pretty neat stuff with TikTok. One of our events is, it's like a finance event with Wall Street types. And we found that there is a huge presence of Wall Street business traders on TikTok. Who would have guessed that, and there they are. So let's talk to them where they are. Let's meet them where they are. And apparently that's TikTok.
Okay, I would not have predicted that in a zillion years. All right, I've got a whole bunch of, I'm going to call them rapid fire questions. So the Innovation Women mission originally was get more women on stage at conferences and events, and we kind of quickly expanded that to more diverse speakers and more inclusive stages. When I'm talking with event managers, one of the things I love pointing out is that diverse speakers means more diverse audiences. Emily, back me up or shoot me down. What do you think? True or false?
Back you up 100%.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, is it because of the networked effect when they're promoting to their networks, or do you think it's because people look and make decisions based on, I see myself potentially on stage?
Well, I just attended a session at AHIP, which is the Health Insurance Plans event, and the speaker was a woman. Her book, and she wrote a book called The Sum of All of Us, I think. And I bought it in her session. I mean, literally in the middle of her talking, I went and bought the book because what she was talking about was so fascinating. And it was about how we need to think about diversity in everything because it brings new perspectives. It makes us challenge what we may not even realize that we need to challenge, and just brings new ideas that are better for everybody. They're better for businesses. They're better for events. They're better for organizations. They're better for personal relationships. And it was just a really, really strong message again that, I felt so inspired in her session that I got the book and I'm reading it now.
Wow. Okay. Rusty, does AnswerStage have anything kind of on the numbers or any access to information about that diverse audience, like in terms of it helping the event managers?
That's a really good question. We don't have the data that would say, a diverse group of videos is more effective. I can tell you that as we see the videos being produced, that the people producing them are applying that diversity philosophy very, very. I bet you if we looked, there's more women who've created videos than men. There's probably more people of color than that would be, of percentage of the population. So I think people are really kind of taking that as a new philosophy that it is important to create content that shows the diversity of the different conferences that they're hosting.
Yeah, and especially if you're getting out there on social media, and I frankly get sent this all the time. If you are putting up a panel, which is what we call an all-male panel, and you are creating content, whether it's email marketing, whether it's videos, whatever it is, if you're putting up a panel, you know what? That piece of content is going to end up in my email box on a regular basis, so if you are not showing diverse and inclusive speaking panels, you are setting yourself up for, potentially social media embarrassment. I have seen sponsors pull out of events that have been held up to ridicule online. Like these are the things, like you need to make sure that you are putting your equity and your inclusive hat on when you do your promotions. Like Emily, I'm curious if like your company, like, are there is there an eye being applied to content as it's going out the door, as you're putting together events?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And that's something that's really important to all of the clients that we work with. They want to make sure that they're bringing diverse viewpoints because the reality is that our world is diverse. The population of business professionals are not one color, one gender, where it's everybody. So content needs to appeal to our entire workforce, our entire network of professional attendees. So it's absolutely something that's critical to all of the clients that we work with. And I think that they do a really great job of making sure they're bringing in that diversity to the conversation of even the content that they're talking about.
Yeah. And I will also say that diverse perspectives are important for events and conferences, because if everybody thinks the same, it's a very boring conference.
Yeah. We're not advancing ourselves if we're not, challenging the norm.
Yep. Oh, I like that. I'm quoting you on that later, just so you know.
I'll take credit for it.
Credit given. Absolutely. All right. So when you and event organizers are looking at speakers, are you looking at their social media history when making a decision in terms of invitations?
Ooh, fun question. Well, we don't want to provide too much recommendation as far as what speakers should be at an event. We really want to leave the event organizers, that space. But what we do help with is evaluating speaker candidates or confirmed speakers to be influencers. So the anything that happens in the consumer marketing world makes its way into B2B. Just TikTok, we're doing that now. Influencers, we do that too. But what we really look at is micro influencers. And a lot of times speakers are micro influencers. So we evaluate their profiles through a tool that allows us to really gauge them on those B2B metrics. So are their audiences aligned with the industry? Do they have a reach on a variety of channels? Do they have, audiences who are going to be interested in this content? And that's really valuable for them, because those are the speakers who get paid, and those are the speakers, because they get paid as an influencer. It's a lot easier to get paid as an influencer than it is to get a speaker contract paid. And I know you have all the stats there, so that's a pretty cool benefit to having a strong social following. And you also get treated as a VIP at your event. You're going to get like a first class flight if you ask for it. You're going to get all these kind of special treatments. So yes, we do look at social profiles. And yes, there's a huge benefit to building up your social network and having that as part of your gravitas as a speaker.
I love the concept of influencers and micro influencers, but I especially love the concept of that might get you paid. So very important tip. You notice how I kind of left that toward the end there. All right. I want to make sure that our audience is sticking with us through these conversations. So we leave the really cool stuff for the end. I would love to hear you tell me, if you know, what percentage of ticket sales come through speaker marketing? Do you have a sense of that? Or does it vary?
It varies. Sometimes it's hard to track, so we can't always look at the attribution, but it's one thing. Another thing that's come out of the pandemic is that databases are just stale and dead. So people have changed jobs, they've moved companies, they've transitioned to, their own work from home businesses. Obviously, everyone kind of knows what's going on in the world with staffing shortages and all that. So organizers cannot just rely on their email lists. They need to get in touch with other audiences. So it's a growing number. I don't have the number offhand, and I don't want to misquote anything there, but it's definitely a growing number. The reach of a speaker is really important.
Wow. Okay. The reach of a speaker. All right. We are closing in on the last few minutes of today's presentation. I'd love to get some recommendations from our guests today. So last thoughts, last tips, don't forget, anything that you want to leave people thinking about. Emily, you want to go first?
Well,
no pressure.
Yeah, right. I mean, for me, it goes back to the value that a speaker will get from promoting their own session. You're going to grow your network. You're going to expand your reach. You're going to get more, butts and seats is what we always say on the event side. If you're promoting your session, and we talked about some of those other benefits about, hey, maybe you're going to become a micro influencer and you're going to, get a new revenue stream, right? So I think that that's really the biggest thing for me.
Okay. Rusty?
I'm going to sort of be 100% honest. I think advice I have is to be a little bit less self-conscious, because being self-conscious stops you from posting things on LinkedIn, posting things on Twitter, building that following, because we're all sort of worried about how we look and what we sound like and what we do. And that is a concern, but you have to get over that in this world. I think you have to be out there, present yourself, and be confident in who you are and your personality. So to me, that's sort of something I think about day in and day out, is just do it, really just do it.
If I can do it, folks, anybody can do it. And,
Exactly.
I do love this conversation. I love the great advice that the two of you had to share with us today. Great questions from our audience today. And, it's just, I think, really important to see events and speakers working together to deliver real value for the audiences and for each other. It's like, let's face it, as a speaker, I am on stage for a reason. I want to be seen as a thought leader. I want to introduce the audience to my marketplace, to my business, to me as a leader. So this is really great, useful information. Thank you so much to the two of you. And we hope to hear from you again soon.
Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you. And Let's see here. I want to also say that today is being brought to you by Lioness Magazine and my speaker leads. And don't forget, if you're interested in joining Innovation Women, you can use that code IWWebinar for 20% off your first year. And also just check us out at innovationwomen.com. Thank you all for joining us. And don't forget, we need your feedback too. So fill in the survey on your way out the door. Thank you, folks. Take care.
You.
Bye-bye.